The library
is open.
Oh my gosh. Well, the internet is the first place that I was able to be myself. When I was in high school, it was the first place that I saw myself represented in like the weird underbelly of Tumblr back in like 2011. I was like, oh no, why do I identify so much with these trans men? But you know, it was a place of relief also and hope.
In the early, I'd say late 90s, early 2000s, I used the internet to Google the term gay Iranian and queer Iranian, hoping I would find examples of other people like me. And it was really hard to get any hits on Google back then. A bunch of us found ourselves on mailing lists for SWANA queer communities. SWANA stands for Southwest Asian and North African, and it kind of takes away the Eurocentricness of the word Middle East. You had to stay connected with people by, this thing called a clipboard, there'd be a piece of paper, and you would write your email address. And back then, probably your email ended with Hotmail.
Look, I'm very old, so I came out chatting on gay.com or AOL like gay chats, where you would just chat with 20 other random queer people from around the planet. We were just chatting with strangers. And it was lovely because in the process of learning about other people, I learned about myself. As time went on, then, you know, you got stuff like MySpace and then Facebook, and then Grindr came along so that we could all locate the closest queer men and know what their kinks were within moments of seeing their photos. It took a lot of the pressure off of local public bathrooms, which I think the entire community benefits from.
I love the internet so much. I'm so glad that we have the internet. As an intersex queer person, it is the best time to be alive because intersex people around the world are connecting and building community and getting to know each other. As intersex people, we are often told that we're the only one, which is a lie. So to have somewhere we can go and be together and meet people in Russia and China and all over the world is truly a gift.
I feel like the internet was very helpful with connecting more isolated trans guys in other countries or in different parts of the United States. People who weren't aware of a community or people who were really desperate and searching for a community. The internet was a huge element to bring trans guys together.
I did have an email. I used it to email Kate Bornstein when I was 16 years old. That's my earliest memory of the internet. And she responded. I shoplifted Gender Outlaw, Kate Bornstein's early trans studies reader, and it changed my life.
I think that the internet has begun to play the kind of role that teachers and professors used to play back in the analog era, insofar as so many younger people are learning so much about what it means to be LGBTQIA+, learning about their identities, how to come into them, learning about so many aspects of sexual culture and who we are through the internet in ways that take years of learning in any kind of formal setting.
I am a person who kind of came out and found a queer community without the internet because of my age. So it's really fascinating to think about what it must be like for younger people, and not even that much younger than me, to have kind of come up and been able to find other queer people through the internet. I think it's super important, and I think the internet is largely the reason why there's been such an acceleration in queer rights and trans rights everywhere. It's like when we can find each other and feel empowered by knowing each other, it's super important.
I mostly find community online. It feels safe to me, and also like it's easier to find folks who are more, my speed.
I got on TikTok quite early, and one of the things I love about TikTok is that we can see from the literally hundreds of millions of hashtags for intersex and trans and non-binary and queer, just what interest there is amongst young people in those communities. Non-binary trans, intersex young people are desperate for stories that reflect their life, and we can turn to the internet and prove that there is a market out there, a global market, that the traditional system as it exists at the moment isn't serving.
With Instagram, and now TikTok, there's so many spaces. We see so many different trans guys really blowing up and having huge following. I don't even know if you would call it a career or if you would call it, just influencer status. But it's awesome to see how far we've come since 2009.
It is what we make it, even though I think the baseline structure is not for our benefit. It's like we're swimming against the tide, but it's worth it because those connections can still happen.
It's a love-hate type of place. I think it has been very useful for many of us to find community. But then, it's also a very hateful place because you get kind of a lot of hate, particularly if you're a visible person, based on whatever identities you embody. The internet, it can be used for good and it can be very useful, but it can also be a hellhole.
Oh, wow. Is this a therapy session? Because I can invoice you. No, I think what happens when you don't have peace on the internet, it can just become all the things that we don't need in our lives. It can become toxic. It can become chaotic. It can cause you to really just forget who you are. How many times that I've been told to kill myself, or I'm going to die, or I should work on my weight, or all of these things, I'm not black enough. I've received all that hate from trolls, and to be honest, it could have you out here living to please everyone else that you're trying to gain the attention of. And for me, that's something that I refuse to do. My mama told me not to worry about the haters, so I don't.
I feel like as queer people, trans people, non-binary, black and brown folks, we are socialized in a world that teaches us that we're not worthy, that we should not speak up, that we should not take up space. And so I think you have to do that work on yourself internally, offline, before you can really try to cultivate a space online that is welcoming and supportive for you. And so my advice is always to learn to love yourself as you are. I always say, be a bad bitch, but be open to critique. Walk into spaces knowing that you deserve to be there and you have something to contribute, but also know that you can learn things. And I think once you do that personal internal work, you will be able to see the trolls online and just delete them or ignore them or move past them.
When the printing press was invented, within 50 years, the Catholic Church had been destroyed and governments were being toppled. The world changed because communication changed. And I think it's hard for us to understand 20 or 30 years after Al Gore invented the internet that we are experiencing that kind of change. Queer people only have our liberation because we were finally able to reach past all of these heteronormative boundaries and find each other and create communities and gain strength and learn from each other. And however much it may scare a lot of people that the internet has changed things, and however much the internet has led to a lot of brutality and fascism and the worst of stuff, it's also let the best of people be found. And I'm so excited and lucky to get to live in this world.
Gay, 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 gay. Gay, 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 gay.